NOEL LANGLOIS de TRAVERSY. 5 generations before Scholastique was born, 2 centuries earlier, on December 7th, 1651, Noel was born and baptized in Quebec. He is the first Langlois in these branches to come into this world as an inhabitant of the New France colony. It wouldn't be for over a decade until France would send the Villeroy to help populate their new colony, and before King Louis XIV officially made New France a royal colony in 1663. To further put things in perspective, Montreal was founded by Sir de Maisonneuve less than a decade before Noel was born. He would marry Amy Caron, born in April of 1656. Together, they would have 5 children. Noel was the first Langlois to add de Traversy to help differentiate himself from his father, Noel Sr. It seems likely that the Langlois household sheltered men of the Thuringian Soldier Regiment at the time when young Noel was still an adolescent. Among these men was a brave and dashing young officer, François Laumonier de Traversy. He was slain by natives while hunting on the shores of Lake Champlain. It's 1665. Noel's mother, François Garnier, passes away. He is only 13 years old. The census from 1666 shows Noel living with his father and brother, as well as 2 domestic servants, one his own age. Noel's mom's story is quite interesting. A historic document sheds light on his ancestry. In a book about his father, Noel Langlois, called NOEL LANGLOIS and His Sons, available in the National Library of Canada, it lists the children of Noel Langlois Sr., who came from France, and François Garnier/Grenier, who is of quote-unquote unknown origin. This issue came up as documented proof needed for a notarized land concession given to Jean Langlois, an ancestor of Noel Sr.'s. He was referred to in this document as a savage. The author of the Noel Langlois book explains that this Jean Langlois savage is the grandson of Noel and François Grenier. His parents are Noel Langlois de Traversy and Genevieve Perron, his second wife. This research, based on evidence recorded by the Jesuits, labels Traversy's grandson as being of Aboriginal ancestry. Where does this indigenous lineage come from? Jean Langlois' mother's lineage, Genevieve Perron, clearly goes back to France, recorded in documents, which points in his father's direction. Noel Langlois Sr.'s origins clearly point to France, which leads us back to François Garnier, listed of unknown origin. The documentation begs the question, why would a priest take the time to write down the exact origins of the groom and not bother with those of the bride? Being written by an official notary and a Jesuit priest, they would pay attention to these kinds of details. It was not to anyone's advantage to be labeled a savage if they were not. Other records from genealogical dictionaries list native ancestors as savages, seeming to indicate that Garnier also came from Aboriginal ancestry. Finally, consulting the baptismal act of Louis Langlois in the Three Rivers Cathedral Register in June 1742, his family is identified as being of Algonquin ancestry. It's 1673. At age 21, Noel's first child, François, is born. He is Scholastique's great-great-grandfather. That summer, Noel accompanies Governor Frontenac on an expedition west to the area of present-day Kingston. Noel, calling himself Sieur de Traversy, had a love of hunting, fishing, and the military life. He distinguished himself on this venture with Frontenac, who promised him a seigneury. When reminded of this promise, Frontenac granted a fief on the south shore of the St. Lawrence River. Noel called it Port Joli. It wasn't good farmland, but it was excellent for hunting and fishing, which Noel enjoyed. It also provided tall oak trees for his brother's shipbuilding enterprise. Unfortunately, Noel was never able to develop this seigneury. It's 1677. Noel marries Abby Carraw 4 years after their first child. She would be 21 years old at this time. Interestingly, she is the child of his father's second wife, Mary Crevette. 1682. Their daughter, Adelaide, passes away at 2 years old. Noel is 30 years old. This event unfortunately marks a 5-year period of tragedy. The next year, his daughter Agnes passes away before she is 2. In 1684, his father and namesake, Noel Sr., passes away at age 78. Noel Jr. is 32. Let's take a look at his father, Noel Sr.'s history. Noel Sr. was born 1606 in Normandy, France. He was known as a pilot and a fisherman, sometimes listed as a riverboat pilot and also a ship's carpenter. In the era, the term pilot also referred to the men who would trek and portage over the new lands, acting like a guide, no doubt interacting with the natives. Perhaps Noel was more successful given the culture and customs and history his wife would have shared with him. Noel settled in Beauport, Quebec, 1634. This was 17 years after the legend Louis Gaston Hebert and his family would be the first settlers in Quebec. This was also 8 years before Montreal was founded by Sieur de Maisonneuve. Noel arrived in Quebec on the 4th of June, 1634. For the next 2 months, he would build the manor for Lord Gifford, and on the day the manor was dedicated, Noel married his wife, Françoise Grenier. Following the relinquishment of New France by the British in 1633, Robert Gifford, the seigneur of Beauport, persuaded Langlois to become a settler in the new land. Following Noel's marriage to François in July, they settled in Beauport. 3 years later, he received a grant of land in perpetuity from Lord Gifford. His marriage to François was the 4th marriage in New France and the first since the return of the French in 1633. It was a rather festive occasion for the small frontier community. Noel accumulated considerable land and worked hard clearing it. It took a man all year to clear a little over an acre, so he hired new immigrants to help in his task. His work as a carpenter helped pay them. He could not sign his name on documents, so he fixed his mark as a reversed N. He shared his earnings with the church, and in 1657 he gave a piece of yellow cloth for cutting the blessed bread to Notre Dame in Quebec. The older Noel was serious about his role as patriarch. He made sure his sons had suitable land on the Isle of Orleans for their shipbuilding enterprise. When the youngest son, Noel, wanted to leave the family homestead, parental pressures kept him there. François Grenier died following an accident in 1666. 9 months later, Noel would marry an old friend, Mary Crevette, the widow of Robert Carraw. In the marriage contract, Noel agreed to look after her young daughter, Amy Cron, who would go on to one day marry Noel Jr. This section of the Langlois family tree proves quite interesting, as Noel Sr.'s sister, Marguerite, would marry Abraham the Fields of Abraham Martin, and his father, Guillaume Langlois, would be listed on the monument to Louis Hebert and the first settlers of Quebec. Because the daughter of Guillaume, François Langlois, had a daughter named Helen Desportes, who was arguably the first European born on this soil. In other words, the first Canadian of New France. She would marry Guillaume Hebert, the son of the historical Canadian first settler Louis Gaston Hebert. It's 1684. A review of the troops at Fort Frontenac lists Noel Jr. as a lieutenant. He would remain a lieutenant in the militia at Beauport for the rest of his life. The next year, 1685, his wife, Amy Caron, passes away at age 29. A little over a year later, Noel marries Geneviève Perron, born 1670, nearly 20 years younger. It's 1687. Three of his older siblings pass away in the same year. Noel is 35, marking the end of the 5-year tragedy. The census from this year would show how successful the family has been in adapting to the new world. Along with 2 domestic servants, Noel has listed 4 rifles and 1 pistol, a horse, at a time when it was rare to have one, 17 horned beasts, perhaps sheep and goat, as oxen and cows are listed separately, and 30 acres of valued land. Listed above Noel's family in the census is his father and Amy's mother, who lives on the same land, or at least nearby. At this time, they are in their 70s. It's 1688, and Noel's first child is born with his new wife, Geneviève. Together, they would have 3 more children. It's 1693. Noel passes away at age 41 in Beauport, Quebec, having lived quite a storied life. But the family roots don't stop there. 6 more generations reach back into the past, extending to 200 years earlier with Vincent Langlois, born around 1495 in Normandy, France, the birthplace of Noel Sr.